Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you and slay you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, tire you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men, with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men, you are men, you are men, you are men, you are men.
Welcome to the Rock Worldwide Show here on WSHO Sunshine 800 AM. Back in the big seat, here in the Big Easy. Trey Roberts broadcasting live from downtown New Orleans, overlooking the French Quarter and the CBD here at WSHO Sunshine 800 AM. Glad to be with you. Man, I have missed all of you being here. We've had between Ida and I had to take care of some school business, and there's just the damage to the studios put us off the air for a minute or two. And so it's just, man, it just feels good to be back on air. But we have so much to catch up on. There has been so many things. I think it's probably been almost a month. Obviously, in one, I can't keep up with a week worth of stories. And I'm going to try to catch up with stuff going on. But I'm just going to kind of hit on the high points. Of course, Ida hit us here in Louisiana, and it was a big wind event. Thankfully, it was not a big flood event. There were some places, obviously, that flooded and got a lot of water, especially in places where there was storm surge. Places here locally, like Lafitte, that took a beating. Water that people that live in Lafitte said they've never seen water that high. So there is that. And so there are people very close to us locally and around the state that are continue to need to be kept in your prayers. And if you're able to financially help out any of these people by way of giving, either your time, some of your abilities, some of your resources and finances, of course, that is always appreciated. We are live today on WSHO 800 AM here in New Orleans. And we are also live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So if you have any of those that you enjoy watching, we're live on those. Either type in on those platforms, The Rock Worldwide Show with Trey Roberts, or at Kingdom Useful. Either way should bring you to the live show, and you can watch our live show as well as listen to it here on WSHO. So much to catch up on. I don't even know where to begin. As far as Ida, I think we're finally starting to get back. It feels like things are getting back together. More and more businesses are opening up again now that the power has, for the most part, been restored. I think there are still a handful of people that only recently got power. I know a friend of mine down in Thibodeau, Raceland area, he just got power back like 2 days ago. So there are places that took a beating more so than us here in the local area. We managed to be okay, even though we had nearly, if Entergy's reports are correct, nearly 100% power outage for some period of time. But places like where I live, we were fortunate within a week we got power back. So that was a real blessing. And I know not everybody was in that situation. It was hot. Thankfully, right now the weather is perfect. So that is something that you can be thankful for and take part of. Of course, if you want to be a part of the program, you have something to say, you have something to contribute, you can go to the chat room at WSHO.com. Scroll down, you'll see the chat room there. And we've already got some people in there. We got questions in there. We got Larry G in there. So we got somebody who just wants to watch the stream. Actually, the stream is pointed to an empty office. So fear not, we are live today. And we thank you for joining us. Also, if you want, that's a great place to ask your questions or make your comments. And if it's something you would like for me to talk about, please do enter a question in there. Like questions just did. Anyone you know of that have decided to leave the area permanently as a result of the storm? No. I don't know anybody who's planning on leaving. I know people who are planning on moving. I know several people in Lafitte, several older people who have said the amount of water that they got this time, they don't want to experience that again. They've done well pretty much with every storm they've been a part of, but they're not interested in, at this phase of their life, they're not interested in doing so. They are looking to move to higher ground. They're looking to move north of Lafitte, possibly behind and within the federal flood protection that was created, implemented, and then built since Hurricane Katrina. For areas, I don't know this for a fact. This may just be anecdotal, but I'm pretty certain that the people who live inside of the flood protection, the new flood walls and the new levee systems that were built since Katrina, I think pretty much everybody there did pretty well. Flood and wind wise, of course, you're always going to have, when you have 8 hours of sustained 140 plus mile an hour winds, I don't really think it matters how much you're going to lose. You're going to lose some shingles, trees, fences, siding, possibly a roof. So you're going to lose a lot. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of sustained wind over a very long period of time. So, but I am very encouraged as I travel around the metro area on a daily basis. Very encouraged to see what looks like recovery. Places are opening. Businesses seem to be getting back together, and that includes also maybe the next thing we can talk about is COVID. Here locally, I haven't really heard much talk about COVID. There's been a lot of reasons to be, I think, on the uptick. I know that many of you here in this particular audience, are not big fans of the vaccine, primarily because you don't trust the Biden administration, and the mistrust of the Biden administration is not misplaced on your part. We all have very good reason to believe that President Biden is in a significant cognitive decline at his stage of his life, at his age. Just go back to the Obama years and listen to Joe Biden speak compared to how Joe Biden speaks now. It's not good. And it's not good for the leadership of this country. It's not good for the leadership of the world. America is a world leader, and we need a leader who's got all of his cognitive faculties, and clearly this man doesn't. I guess we'll talk about Afghanistan here briefly. That was a complete debacle. Afghanistan was, as I stated about a month ago, I guess it's been about a month ago. I know I talked about it here on the air. I'm all for getting out of Afghanistan. History has told us that Afghanistan is not a place that we need to or want or should want to be in. However, it is a lot of not wasted, but unnecessary spilling of American lives, of American blood in a place that just is basically going to be run by a 7th century religious fundamentalist group that wants to try to rain terror down on its people so that they can maintain some sort of patriarchal Islamic power. I think we did the job. I think what we need to do now, I think we can continue to monitor the situation, and where Al-Qaeda training camps or where Taliban training camps are popping up, I think that we have the will of the international community to be able to and the ability to be able to knock those things out. We should be able to, with the intelligence both on the ground as well as from what we are doing and seeing via satellite and also via very high altitude drones, we should be able to know what's going on. And when we see something that should not be going on, we should be able to take it out. Going back to the chat room real quick, Nola504 says, yes, have friends who have now placed their homes up for sale, said they can't go through this ever again. Nola504, I would ask you, when you say friends, are we talking about like 2 households? Are we talking about dozens of households? Can you offer a little more context to that comment? Welcome to YN and Fitzgerald as well, who are also in the chat room. If you guys want, if you're in the chat room, make your comment, then jump out. There's only 10 spots available. Right now, we've got 7 people online, including myself, so I can monitor it. So jump into the chat room there at WSHO.com. Make your comment, jump out, monitor it. When you're ready to make another comment, try to jump back in. And if everybody does that, we can get more people in and out of the chat room making their comments. Also, you can go to either Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, and you can also be a part of the conversation there. I'll be monitoring the comments in all 3 of those platforms during the show as well. But Afghanistan was a total debacle. I mean, some of the images, they will forever be a part of American history. Unfortunately, it'll be a part of a horrible side of medical history. And it's just a shame that we left. We should have left, but how we left was a complete, it was horrible. I don't have enough words, actually, when I really think about it. I don't have enough words to be able to describe just how bad it really was. Because, I mean, it was pretty bad. Going back into the chat room, Fitzgerald said, saw a post online from one their area and said, if you choose to live there long-term, you need 3 things: whole home generator, water and food stored up, and weapons for protection. Fitzgerald, I'm assuming that you mean if you're going to live here, you mean in the New Orleans area. I'm assuming that's what you mean. If you can, go ahead and just comment on that. Yeah, I know my family. We've moved to get a whole home generator. Fortunately, before Ida, I kind of figured this was heading our way. So the Monday before Ida, I got a ton of water sent to the house, got a ton of essentials in terms of food sent to the house, and then we did okay, all things considered. Thank you, Nola 504. He said his immediate neighbor next door and 2 people I work with. Again, I'm assuming that you mean in the New Orleans area, right? You're New Orleans proper or the metro area. Is that my assumption, Nola 504? So Afghanistan was a debacle. General Milley, I think that's how you say his name, General Milley. General Milley should be court-martialed, and then he should be dishonorably discharged immediately. I don't think there's any reason why that man. I don't think there's any reason why that man should still be a general in the United States military, least of all over all of our branches of military right now, for what he did, claiming that President Trump was going to start a nuclear war before he stepped out of office and transferred power to Joe Biden on his inauguration, is just ridiculous. This is the general who, under oath in a Senate or House committee hearing, stated that he thinks it's good to study critical race theory. Okay, keep in mind, this is a man who, if you think studying Marxism and critical race theory is good for someone in the United States military, and listen, we're not talking about studying it from an intellectual endeavor, from an intellectually curious standpoint, that you just want to know more about how these ways of thinking, these ideologies actually work. But when you come across as someone who's so interested in these theories, and then you support their implementation, specifically that of CRT, into the military, you cannot. These are anti-American. These are anti-constitutional. These ideas do not support the founding principles by which this country was founded upon. So specifically speaking about the ideas of Marxism and CRT and every single version of critical race theory, and every single version of wokeism, and every single version of Marxism from Karl Marx's actual pen moving forward, every iteration and every evolution and every adaptation of the theory, it is anti-American in the sense that, yes, you are free to study those things, but those ideas are antithetical to the founding principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, principles that are codified in the 10 Bill of Rights. These things should not be a part of the fabric that is woven together, keeping the United States of America today afloat. And so, for those reasons, I believe this man should be dishonorably discharged. He should be let go. But of course, he's not, because he's a leftist, and we have a leftist administration, and we have lots of, and even the people who are the Republicans, like why do we even have Republicans? For what reason? They don't fight. I mean, just look at the border. I mean, if you look at the border right now, the border crisis. I mean, my God, these Haitian refugees, by the way, that you keep hearing about. Understand where these Haitians came from. These are Haitians that left Haiti and went to Central and South America. And then they banded together and caravanned up to the United States border. Now, here's the one difference between the Trump immigration policy and the Biden administration policy. Trump either tweeted, I can't remember. I think he tweeted. I don't think he went into the media. I don't think he was at a White House press conference. Trump simply tweeted that we were going to put a 5% tariff on all goods imported by Mexico. Mexico exports about 80% of all of its products to the United States. And when Trump simply tweeted out that because Mexico was letting people caravan through its country from South and Central America into their country and to our border without stopping them, without holding them, without questioning anything. And in doing so, Mexico immediately sent a group of representatives to the White House to talk with the White House to say, hey, we can't afford this kind of tariff talk. We can't afford to have this kind of tariffs. What do you need us to do? And Trump said it's very simple. These people want to come to the United States. They want to come to the border. They want to claim refugee status. Okay. Fair enough. You want to claim refugee status? Fair enough. Mexico, you hold them in Mexico. You don't let them into the United States. And Mexico did. The Trump policy was that if you're going to come to the border, you're going to be held in Mexico. You're not coming into the United States. And we will process you accordingly. You will be held and processed in Mexico, but not in the United States. Now, as far as anything else, Trump didn't get to build any new wall. Like, he put up new wall, but he put up new wall in terms of replacing old wall. So where wall was dilapidated, and listen, if you talk to any expert, a wall is important, but it's a Band-Aid. The biggest, if you go back to the Obama, Mitt Romney campaign and listen to some of those debates, you will hear probably the last honest conversation about immigration since that time. And what Mitt Romney said was, and he's a progressive Republican, he's by no means a Reagan conservative. And Mitt Romney said, we need to be able to make these illegal aliens self-deport. And the way that you get them to self-deport is you get rid of the jobs. You get rid of their ability to make money, which means you have to have universal e-verify. And you have to hold companies and businesses accountable 100% of the time, 100% accountable for the hiring and the paying of these illegal aliens. That is the biggest. If people think that they can come here and make money, because believe me, the cartels and the drug runners and the human traffickers, they know that they can make money. There are cartel scouts in every major city in the United States. Mexican cartel scouts. There are Mexican cartel scouts, according to reports, on the border, watching our border patrol, learning what we do, learning from the tactics that we use on our southern border, so that they can run smarter operations from Mexico into the United States, whether it be smuggling of drugs, whether it be smuggling of people, whether it be smuggling of human beings for the purpose of sexual exploitation. These people in Mexico, these are not just some local drug gangs. These people are sophisticated. They are well armed. They are well trained. And they have some of the most sophisticated operations, and their criminal behaviors are pouring into the United States of America. And under this administration, we're not going to hear about how many crimes are being perpetrated by cartel members, by gangs that have loyalties to Mexican cartels south of our border. Not going to hear it. The mainstream media is not going to report on it. They're going to report, oh, President Biden sent back Haitian refugees to Haiti. That was a very small group that he sent back, so that the media could report with journalistic integrity. If you're watching, wink, wink. And with that fake journalistic integrity, they continue to process and bus Haitian immigrants into the United States. It's a simple game that they're running on the American people right now. And I don't know that if we claim to really know these things, if we claim to really, those of us who are not East Coast, West Coast people, we are flyover country people, we are conservative, we are Christian, we are evangelical, we are traditional values type people. If we really understand what's going on, like we say we do, like we think we do, and we don't get rid of the Democrat majorities in both the House and the Senate next year, because look, the goal will be after that to then put the pressure on Republicans. We need to finish out this year, rest up. Hopefully there's no more natural disasters, but we need to significantly mentally recharge in this last quarter of 2021, COVID and all. And we need to be prepared to, in every congressional district across this fruited plain, we need to prepare. If there is an incumbent Democrat, we need to make sure that a Republican beats them, a libertarian beats them, an independent candidate beats them. It just needs to be anybody but the Democrats. And it needs to be overwhelming. If you have a Republican in your district that you don't like, maybe they're a progressive Republican or maybe they're a Democrat light Republican, I get it, but this next election is not the time to try and primary and purge the Republican Party, in my humble opinion. If there's a Republican there in office, make sure that Republican is reelected. And if there's a Democrat in the office, we need to do everything that we can do to get rid of that Democrat in both the House and the Senate. If the incumbent has retired, whether they were Democrat or Republican, that empty seat that's going to be primaried for, in the primary, we need to have a great Republican candidate. And if you don't have a primary, if you're not a part of a primary system that's party only, then you need to make sure that you support not the perfect candidate, but the candidate that can win from your party. If there's an R and they can win, get them in. And then with a Republican majority, we need to be prepared that in the spring and summertime of the first quarter or two with this new Congress with major Republican majorities, we need to be showing up at every town hall demanding that these people do the right thing. They wouldn't listen to us in the Obama years when the Tea Party was blowing and going. And yet we slowed up Obamacare with no ability in Congress to stop it. We slowed it up. It should not have taken 18 months. But just by us showing up at town halls, just by us going to Washington, D.C. and forcing the news media to make coverage of we're not happy with the direction of our government. We're in the same place. We're once again there at that place where if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you need to go ahead and rise up, get all your batteries charged, get mentally in a good headspace, and be prepared for the hard work to come. Because we're talking about not this November in 2021, but November of 2022. And then we're talking 2023, really making a difference. God help us in what they try and do to stumble all of that, to cause you into more desperation, more frustration, a greater desire for you to give up because you think the country is lost. I'm not ready to throw it in yet. Now I want to go to the chat room because a bunch of people chimed in. So let's see. Let me find out where we were when we were in the chat room last. Okay, Nola 504 said going off for a weekend, so have a great day. Thank you, Nola 504. Enjoy your weekend, sir or madam, or sir and madam. Fitzgerald said just saw that online. Yes, from someone there. Gotcha. Fitzgerald, where are you calling from, or where are you in the chat room listening from? Let's see. Zephram joined us in the chat room, and also, of course, YN is still in there. Frank and Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald said we have other threats here. Live earthquakes. Fitzgerald, where are you listening from? Zephram said it's wrong to play God and operate a drone and become judge and executioner and kill those people in the Middle East who prefer Islamic law instead of Western secular humanism. All right, Zephram, I'll play along. Thank you for your comment. Number one, I agree with you. It's wrong to play God. Number two, when I said operate a drone, what I meant is from an intelligence standpoint. We don't actually have to have tens of thousands of troops inside of a country to know whether or not regimes like the Taliban or ISIS or Al-Qaeda, organizations that even Islamic people don't support overwhelmingly. You may have overwhelming sympathy toward these groups and these causes within most of the Muslim world but not everyone are jihadists. Not everyone in the Muslim world are Islamists. You do have many Muslims in the world who are conservative and therefore have sympathies, but the rest of the Muslim world, the overwhelming majority of the Muslim world, they do not support organizations like the Taliban. They do not support ISIS. They do not support Al-Qaeda and the way that they operate in the world. So these organizations, Zephram, are not organizations who are preferred by the people in the Middle East and the Islamic countries. These people are oppressed. These people are terrorized. These people are, there's no democracy. These people aren't voting the Taliban in. They're not voting ISIS into their city, into their region. They're not voting Al-Qaeda. They're not voting in Africa for Boko Haram and all of these Al-Qaeda sympathetic organizations. Excuse me, but these organizations are fundamentally disliked, disapproved of, and would love for them not to exist in most of the Islamic world. So no one's calling for Western secular humanism to replace it. I know that was a reference to the United States of America. I don't disagree with you there. But come on, can we not? I'll use your dichotomy. Okay, this is not me trying to twist your words. If we're going to do an either or here, Do you really think the people in the Middle East prefer Islamic law as carried out by terrorist organizations like ISIS, Al Qaeda, and the Taliban, as opposed to the freedoms of countries like Israel, Europe, and the United States and Canada? I mean, come on. You got to be kidding me. That's a horrible either or fallacy on your part. Nola 504 said that he's from the North Shore. Also, Nola 504 said before they left for the weekend that there's a Trump rally this evening in Georgia. Zephram said only Jesus Christ can make America great again, not Donald Trump. That's true. No doubt about that. And I don't listen real quick. Let's just talk about this for a second. Donald Trump doesn't really have a lot of great individual ideas. Okay, it's well known that like Trump's immigration policy was basically the old, I forget, Rick Santorum. He basically took all of Rick Santorum's talking points and made them his own. Okay, it's smart. Okay, it's not a bad idea. If you agree with somebody's white paper on a particular topic, especially a policy decision within government, and you like it, and you're the leader, use it. Okay, so Ronald Reagan said, "Make America great." Trump said, "Make America great again." I mean, let's not look into it anything else. Zephram, I can imagine that you're probably not a Trump supporter. I get it. Okay, you don't have to be. God bless you, anyways. I know I wasn't at first, and I became one over time. A Trump supporter, that is. And I don't conflate that with my loyalty to Jesus. I can believe that Donald Trump was a better president than Joe Biden in almost every circumstance. And I can still critique Joe Biden, and I can critique Donald Trump. Trump was talk on the border. Yes, he had his hands tied, but he also is supposedly the great negotiator. He was supposed to be able to get things done. He didn't get anything done. He didn't get any new wall, which wouldn't have made a major difference anyway. And he conceded. He gave DACA. He gave the kids who come here, he let them stay here legally. He didn't fight on DACA. He didn't reverse. He cut some funding out of sanctuary cities. But as soon as Biden got in office, he reversed it, and the funding went right back. We didn't like when Barack Obama was using the executive order of his office and just writing executive order after executive order. We considered that to be a runaround and a surpassing of Congress and the constitutional limits of what each co-equal branch of government is supposed to do. And then we stopped being critical of the executive of our country in doing that, because all he did was sign his fancy Donald J. Trump signature. And we liked the executive orders that he did, but he didn't put the pressure from the bully pulpit from when he still had Twitter and social media and these sorts of things. He still didn't get the things done that he wanted to get done. And there's a huge difference between Donald Trump tweeting something and us getting excited about the president of the United States wanting to do something and him tweeting it and it actually turning into a real policy. That's a big, big difference. So I serve no king but Jesus. I am proud in the most humblest of senses to be considered a son of God, to be able to vocationally represent and image Jesus Christ as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords to this world. And from this microphone, I invite everyone to join the kingdom of God, where Jesus is the King, ruling and reigning, where everyone is welcomed, where you are loved. And Jesus has paved the way to restore the relationship that God has intended from the foundations of the earth, from the very time of creation. God wanted relationship with his human imagers. So if you're human, you were created in the likeness and image of God. He wants relationship with you. That wasn't possible until Jesus paved the way to reconcile the relationship between God and humanity, doing away with sin, hell, death, and the grave. You have been loved while yet an enemy. You are loved. And so come. If you don't know how to become a part of the kingdom of God, 504-527-0800. Going back to the chat room, Larry G said, the problem with that plan is they will just make the illegals citizens. Larry G, that's something that we have to, consider. If they pour in 7,000 people a day, you do the math. 7,000 people a day are supposedly crossing into the border and being shipped to states and countries all over the United States. At what point do they turn the faucet off and then pass legislation? It would have to be done. And right now, the only thing, Larry, preventing that from happening is Mitch McConnell. And I know, Larry G, if you're like me, you have no confidence in that whatsoever. No confidence whatsoever. Noble 504 said he also heard somebody on the North Shore. North Shore took a pretty good beating, by the way, going back to the storm. Questions in the chat room says, will that work if they cheat again like 2020? Well, that's a great question. If you've been keeping up with the Arizona audit seems to, according to Republicans there in Arizona, it seems that after the audit was done, it seems as though Biden actually won by a wider margin, at least in the counties that Arizona, which one of the counties that they did a full forensic audit on was Maricopa County, the largest of the counties in Arizona. So questions, you talk about the cheating, and I understand that there was a lot of funny business. I think the primary, here's the thing that I think we don't discount. Here's the thing that if we're going to jump back into the conversation real quick about the last presidential election, here's something to keep in mind. I think there were 23 states that never had compulsory ballots sent to every person in the state. So you had people who otherwise don't leave their homes and go vote, the irresponsible people. This is a certain demographic. I'm not going to name the socioeconomic status. I'm not going to name the race. I'm not going to name the location, because I don't want this to turn into some kind of, it's just hate speech. But there is a group of people who are overwhelmingly registered to vote one particular way. And unfortunately, the party of those people never figure out how to get a huge turnout from their base. Now, that being said, if they could figure out a way to get a bigger turnout, then you would see what you saw, in my opinion, in these unbelievable numbers and the joke that Joe Biden earned 80 million votes. That's a joke. But we know that the only way that could have happened is for people who would never go to the poll because they're just irresponsible citizens. Now they didn't have to go to the poll. And we know that these election laws were changed by election officials, judges, governors. They weren't done through the state legislatures for the most part. And shame on the Republicans who had over a year to fight this. I mean, Trump talked about it in debates months before the actual general election. And the Republicans just sat on it. I didn't see any fighting to reverse these things, to make these challenges. And the court cases that were challenged, I mean, some of them were upheld, but they can't reverse anything. So I think one of the things that everybody listening to this, wherever your state is, you have to make sure that there are no compulsory ballots, meaning that if you want a ballot, if you want a mail-in ballot and you want to vote absentee, or you want to vote early, or you want to vote because of an exception, a disability or something, you contact the registrar of voters closest to you and they will send you a provisionary ballot. That's always been the case. But again, that requires you to know how to get onto a website, that requires you to know how to what website to get onto, requires you to check the mail, requires you to open and fill it out, to lick it and close it, stamp it or not stamp it, and send it back in the right amount of time. It requires some basic responsibility, the kind of basic responsibility that, to be honest with you, ought to be expected to be able to vote in the United States of America. That should not be too much to ask. Going back to the chat room here, Fitzgerald said, west of there, worked in Louisiana 2 years. Gotcha. Frank said, Rob, Florida. I don't know what Rob, Florida is, but okay. Zephram said, democracy, a wolf and a lion and a sheep on what to decide what's for lunch. Well, Zephram, good thing for you, we're not a democracy. Okay? So we're not a democracy. A majority here doesn't rule. We are a republic, a constitutional republic. We vote representatives who go and do the business of the people. So your contextualization of our government as a democracy is wrong. And so you don't have to worry about the wolf, the lion, and the sheep figuring out what's for lunch. Frank said, Taliban, as Joey calls them. Oh, Taliban, yeah. As Joey calls them, has announced that they will begin public executions in the same stadium as when they were in power 20 years ago. Yeah. They say that cutting people's wrists off is necessary for the government to make a point to people that they shouldn't steal. And you understand that most of the time in places like Afghanistan, people are stealing because they're so poor that they don't have any other way. They don't have governmental safety nets like we have here in the United States, which is basically become a welfare state. So, yeah. So, Frank, you should actually talk to Zephram, because Zephram thinks that these people prefer public executions and hand and foot amputations and public beatings of women. He thinks that those people prefer that sort of rule over Western secularism. Frank, how long before we will be back there? I don't know. I don't know back where. Oh, back in Afghanistan? How long before we'll be back in Afghanistan? I think we'll probably leave like 1,000 or so troops in, which we should have had plans to do to begin with. And so will we completely pull out? I don't know. Just a reminder that coming up in about 15 minutes from now, Issues and Answers live, 12 o'clock noon. Elder Mike Indest is back to the study of 1 John, starting in chapters 4, verse 9. So get your Bibles ready for that, coming up in just about 15 minutes from now. And Frank, again, in the chat room, said lots of reasons, mostly rhinos who worked again, I think he meant it worked against President Trump's plans. Yeah, Trump didn't get everything that he wanted to do. There's no doubt. Okay. But also I assumed he would be a much better negotiator than what he showed to end up being. Now, I didn't get a chance I have been wanting for a long time now to discuss this next topic. 1-6 and the investigation of 1-6. If you don't follow revolver.news, I recommend that you do so very much so, because revolver.news is the only place that I see that has been reporting this particular story. There was a very underreported New York Times bombshell that just came out. And that bombshell has an admission that the FBI had informants who marched into the Capitol on 1-6. Now, many of us, when 1-6 took place, Kathleen and I went on the air that day and talked about how bad it was. But in the way that the people were behaving and the way that the people were dressed, many of these people did not seem like the Tea Party people and the converted Tea Party people into Trump supporter MAGA people that we had known. We stated that live on the air when we heard that. And what we have found, mostly reported by Revolver.news. Revolver.news is the website that is reporting this. What Revolver.news noticed is that there were many people who were arrested and charged with different variations and parts in the insurrection, but there were people who were arrested and then not charged the same way. Like, for instance, the leader of the Oath Keepers. So now questions like, well, how many undercover federal participants were in this insurrection? Now, what we're doing is we're using the Megan Whitmer, the governor of, if you remember, there was a story that the governor of Michigan, Megan Whitmer, that there was a plot to kidnap her and there was a plot to harm her. And of the 12 people that were a part of the plot to harm her, 7 of the 12 people were FBI undercover informants that basically entrapped these other 5 people. But all you heard in the story, as it was reported, was a group of 12 plotted, schemed, and were stopped before they planned to kidnap Megan Whitmer, Governor Whitmer. So Revolver.news and the good journalists over there at Revolver.news have been on this and noticed that these people were arrested but not charged. And yet people who did far less than these people did were arrested and charged. And if you're not aware of this, there are like grandparents that walked into the Capitol with a couple hundred other people while tens of thousands of people stayed outside the Capitol. And those people have been held in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, ladies and gentlemen, since 1/6. It's unbelievable. And it's been reported over and over and over by Revolver.news that 1/6 was not a failure of intelligence to be able to prevent this. What 1/6 was 1/6 was a failed intelligence operation. The FBI, in coordination with the Capitol Police Department, which has become